Today I talked to Sophie Boudreau, who is my friend, a fellow comedy writer. She was also a recent finalist for the NBC Late Night Writers Workshop, which is a huge accomplishment. I'd like to welcome to the podcast, Sophie.
Therapy roulette, consent event, drama disguised as comedy.
I'm here with Sophie Boudreau, my good friend and former coworker. Sophie, how are you doing, truthfully?
Well, I have developed shingles at the age of 28, so I feel like that is the best indication of how I am doing right now.
You're not the
Um,
only one.
yeah, I know you and I were talking about our shared skin problems during this pandemic, so um, I don't know, like
Do you know
I
the cause of it? Is it from stress?
it's definitely from stress because I think the average onset for like someone to get shingles is 55 plus. Like the doctor told me he can't even give me the shingles vaccine for another 20 years because you have to be 50. Yeah, it's absolutely stress induced. Like
That's an that's
I
unfair. There's an age limit on the shingles vaccine.
there is, yeah. I don't know. I honestly like I'm glad to know what it is because for 2 weeks beforehand I was like it's a spider bite. It's some kind of STD that like somehow I got from someone that
Never
I did
leaving your
not have
house.
contact with. Like, I don't know. Um, yeah, but I feel like my recent shingles diagnosis really sums up my body's reaction to 2020. It's just like pure stress. And
It's almost
today,
like a hey, at least you didn't get something worse. It's just a skin
well,
irritant.
yeah, it's a virus technically. So I was saying to people, like, if I'm going to get a virus during this time, I'd rather have it be shingles than COVID. But I'd also like to not have shingles in my 20s. But
Because from what I can gather from your social media presence, you haven't been seeing anybody. Have you seen any people in person?
we have seen, I mean, other than Wilson, my boyfriend who I live with, I've seen one friend in like a park with a mask on, and that was like a big step for me because yeah, I'm being like I'm that person who is taking COVID to the extreme when it comes to precautions, which there are worse things I guess that you could be doing during a pandemic, but
I mean,
yeah.
that's what all the medical professionals are doing. That's what all the doctors are doing. They're not leaving their houses, so they have if they don't have
Yeah,
to.
I think it'd be a lot harder if I lived in Michigan, like where my family is and where most of my close friends are, because it'd be very tempting to do like more outdoor kind of meetups and stuff. And I'm sure if I lived there, I would have seen my family. But yeah, other than that one hangout with a friend, and then like I had a friend come over and drop off something to me, so we chatted for like 5 minutes. Yeah, I really haven't seen anyone other than people at the grocery store who I've like yelled at internally,
And
and
is your
doctors.
mental health suffering because of that, or are you? How is your mental health affected by not seeing many people?
I think I think it's changed like since the beginning of the pandemic. Like at first, honestly, I kind of appreciated the chance to like be able to say no to things without having to come up with an excuse because
Right.
like I don't know. I mean, I love my friends. I like doing stuff, but I also definitely can be a homebody, and so it was nice to have that like built-in reason to not see people. But
You don't have
now,
to cancel anything because everything's canceled.
yeah, exactly. And now it's been 8 months, and I'm starting to be like, oh, perhaps I do need social interaction to survive as a human being. So, yeah, like my friends and I and my family have done a lot of stuff virtually and a lot of Zoom stuff, but it's definitely not the same at all.
It's a small band-aid for what you can't have right now.
Yeah. Like I went to the doctor to get I actually okay, I got the shingles checked out, which is on my inner thigh. And I
Thank you for
also
the information.
I know I'm going somewhere with this. And then also I had to get my lady exam, my annual pap smear a couple weeks before that, and just feeling like the warm touch of someone who's not Wilson, it was titillating. I'm not gonna lie. It was a little titillating. I was
It's
like,
very personal.
okay, all right. Like it was nice to feel physically close to another person, even though they were scraping my cervix. Like it's fine.
They're trying to help you.
Yeah, she was nice. It was fine. But yeah, no, I really haven't seen
Good for you for
seen
going to
anyone.
the doctor, not avoiding it out of COVID fear.
I feel like safest at the doctor, weirdly enough. I guess just because they're, at least here in LA, like the doctor's offices I have been to have been very stringent with their temperature checks and their like waiting rooms. And my doctor's office is all, this is my dream come true. It's like all contactless, so you can check in on your phone and then you scan a QR code and then they text you where to go. And you don't
I
even.
do love that about the COVID, the adaption we live in now with the kiosk everywhere. Like, you don't have to talk to a server for too long. You can just order
Seriously,
stuff off a kiosk.
like not having to interact with people as a person with social anxiety that centers around like making phone calls or like talking to people in service situations. Yeah, this is like my dream in some ways. In some small ways. In most ways, not my dream. But.
It's been mostly beneficial socially.
Right. I'll take what I can get out of this year, so it's fine.
I feel you. Well, let's talk about your therapy experience. Are you in therapy right now?
I am. I
doing virtual
I'm
therapy?
doing all e-therapy, which was a huge, I don't know. It's going better than expected for sure, but I was definitely really nervous about switching from my normal in-person therapy to seeing her over FaceTime, and now I guess we're doing it on Zoom now. But yeah, it's surprising to me like how effective therapy can still be when you're not seeing someone face to face. I think prior to COVID, I would have definitely never chosen to do it virtually, but I've been pleasantly surprised, and it's kind of nice to like have my cat with me while I'm talking to my therapist and like
a little comfort.
Yeah, I literally sit on the floor, so I'll take it. But I do miss kind of like the in-person element though, like having a reason to get up really early on Tuesday and like go in and do my thing and get my day started on that note. But you know, I think I'm lucky to still be able to have access to that during this time.
Mm-hmm. And do you still do it weekly, like a regular routine?
Yeah, I still do it every week. Pretty much same time as I've been doing it for the past almost year, I guess, that I've been seeing her. So that's like my one day of normalcy usually during the week. Like it's the only day that I put on a bra, like I put on makeup, because my job doesn't really require me to be on Zoom calls very often or anything. So seeing my therapist is like my one day a week that I clean myself.
Why do you present yourself well for your therapist? Is it so she like thinks you're doing good? Or
no, like she knows that I am in deep agony most times that I talk to her, but like I don't know. I think it's just a good excuse to like force myself to do that. But no, she does not. She has no like misconceptions about how I'm doing.
After being in quarantine for 8 months, I realized I only put on makeup or like try to look good when I see a new person. Like if I'm going to see a friend for dinner, or if I'm like maybe if I'm going to the doctor or something, I try to look more presentable. But then for Joseph, I'm like, this is
oh my God, the lack of effort, like my effort level, especially with Wilson, was so low, but my lack of effort has somehow gone even lower than it was pre-pandemic. Like I'm the same way. I do not wear pretty much any makeup because I always have a mask on, which is great for people with adult acne because it's just like, most of my
adult
no, I'm wearing makeup, Michelle. I'm wearing this Maybelline not sponsored Maybelline Super Stay full coverage, not sponsored but should be
blemish free.
It's actually like the cruel irony is that my adult acne has gotten better during COVID and I'm not seeing anyone, so it's probably because I stopped wearing makeup. Like maybe the makeup was causing the breakouts, but whatever. But yeah, anyway.
You just have a little bit of shingles.
It's on my thigh. It's on my thigh. My aunt, somebody I know got it on their face, and that's worse. So I'll take the inner thigh shingles.
I know someone our age who had it recently, so it's not just you.
No, I know. Actually, it was weird. Like when I first realized what it was like omnipresent. Everyone I knew was suddenly telling me stories of like they had shingles, or my aunt and uncle both happened to have shingles. My friend had it on her scalp at age 26. So I don't know. I feel like how do we not all
you
have
opened
shingles?
the dialogue.
I think like I might have been responsible for like a resurgence in like shingles awareness, like I single-handedly.
If
But
there's
yeah,
already a ribbon designated, you should design one.
it's just like a bumpy, like pus, like have some oil, some like bodily fluids coming out, and it's red, and then it has some crusty bumps on it, and that's shingles awareness.
Is
So
this the ribbon you want to design?
yeah, it's like a ribbon, but it's like a ribbon made out of doll skin, like those really realistic dolls that like perverts get, and you cut that into a ribbon shape and then dot it with shingles, and then you wear that for shingles awareness. So
Like if a sex doll is not doing it for you, get a shingles
yeah,
doll.
it's a shingles doll, it's a sex doll, but it's more realistic because it reflects the stressed out state of this world. Just saying.
I would, definitely share that link on
Thank
my
you.
social media.
I think I might do a Kickstarter. I'll keep you posted though.
Please do. And I don't want to go too deep into my own skin problems, but I have some undiagnosed eczema or whatever. So I think we're all too stressed, and I blame it on doing the dishes all the time, but who knows what it is.
Is your eczema like on your hands, or is it in a specific place?
Yeah, it's like on the crevices in between my hands, like the web of my hand.
God. Sounds
and I got
bad.
cortisone, like
Yeah,
somebody prescribed.
hydrocortisone. I put that on my shingles too.
It's been helping.
It does help. It's steroid cream. But
I
apparently,
feel like an old woman, but it's helping.
no, if you use it for too long though, apparently it's not good for you. So don't go overboard with the steroid cream. I learned that
Okay.
in my deep skin rash research that I did
I'll have
pre-diagnosis.
to not get addicted to it.
Don't do it.
So you have been with your therapist for a while. Have you ever had like a negative therapist or someone who wasn't professional, who wasn't a good fit?
I was thinking about this question because you mentioned that we might talk about it, and I've never had like a therapist who's inherently bad, but I've had good therapists who have done strange things on occasion. The one that comes to mind for me, I guess I've been in therapy for 10 years. I think I started when I was 18 or so, and my very first therapist, first of all, I felt bad for her because she was the first one, so she had to deal with like just the initial like, let's break through that wall of what's wrong with you. But there was one time I remember that I was just telling her about my week, and she started crying. I wasn't even
About
crying.
your week?
Yeah, I'm like, is my life story that depressing to you that you as a mental health professional are in tears just hearing about 1 week in my life? Like, what does that say about me?
Maybe you're just a really gifted storyteller.
No, that is not what happened. Like, I was going through a really bad breakup at that time, I guess. This must have been in like early college.
I mean, if
And
you were 18, probably everything's very
yeah,
heightened, very emotional.
but this was like a 45-year-old woman. Why was she crying? Yeah, so that was probably like the most uncomfortable moment because then I was like comforting her about
Did she
my sadness. No, she was just like, "Oh, that's just really sad to think about." I'm like, "Lady, I appreciate like she's
She hadn't
empathetic."
done yoga recently, or she hadn't dealt with her own pain.
Clearly not, but like I appreciated the empathy. I genuinely did, but that was weird. And then I had a lady in my college therapist who was actually wonderful and helped me a lot in college, but her office perpetually smelled like weed, and she claimed it wasn't from her, but her office was like in an apartment building, and she just rented an apartment for her office. And every single session, like the vent would turn on, and just this like weed odor would rise in, and I found that unsettling.
Was it in Michigan?
Yeah, this was in Ann Arbor in college.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it probably wasn't her, because that's not legal in Michigan. Or
It is well. The weird thing is like my college town was, prior to like legalization, was one of the most lax places in the state. So it could have totally been her, but she claims it wasn't. And then going off the smell thing,
the smell of marijuana is pervasive, so it could have been like her next door neighbor.
Yeah, it was like I didn't want to go, and I didn't need that in my life at that time. I was living in a dorm. I had enough like lingering pot odor around me at all times from living in a dorm.
And you were
Did I
straight
need it?
edge.
Yeah, I was very straight edge. And I did not need smell of weed during therapy. And then I tried to get a new therapist over the summer, and that lady's office was over a popcorn shop. So her office smelled like popcorn.
This is very distracting for therapy.
Yeah. But to answer your question, I haven't ever had like an inherently bad therapist. It's just been like, why are these things happening during an otherwise good therapy experience? But I've actually been pretty lucky with the people that I've found. So I've only had to, I think, break up with one therapist, and that was just because like it wasn't a good stylistic fit, I guess. But yeah, no one that's been like awful.
That's good. Have you stuck with therapy consistently for 10 years, or have you taken some like long breaks?
I took a break when I was in Malaysia for about a year just because like the logistics of doing therapy from abroad just seemed like too much.
On different time zones too.
Yeah, but other than that 1 year, I've pretty consistently done it. There've been like a couple month periods here and there. But I kind of found that like when I would stop going just because I felt like I was happier, then I would really miss it, and I would be like, oh,
you do the quotes happier in quotes.
No, but it's like if something really positive happened in my life and I felt like the immediate need for therapy wasn't there, I think I would stop going and then pretty quickly realize that having that consistency and like having that third party person to talk to even about the positive stuff was really helpful for me. And I think that's like a pretty big misconception, that you go to therapy like when you're dealing with an immediate trauma or you're working through one thing and then like I figured it out and I don't have to go anymore. For me, it's definitely been in good times and in bad, like a very beneficial thing. So yeah, I've almost consecutively for 10 years gone, other than that 1 year long break. So yeah.
And are you always able to share like what you want to share with your therapist? Are you more of like open about everything? Because I feel like I quit therapy because I feel like, oh, I've hit everything I want to share with this person. I don't want to go any deeper. I want to, Google stuff, and
Yeah.
then maybe I'll start therapy again.
Yeah, I mean, definitely like I think with my current therapist, I tend to talk a lot more about like the day-to-day stuff. And that's partially because like with COVID, and 2020, there's like something new every single day. Whereas like previously,
or like daily anxiety or things
right.
that pop up.
Like I dealt with a lot of the really big things early on, like the first few years of therapy. And I don't feel like there's okay, that's not true. I don't feel like there's many like huge significant problems that I haven't like delved into with my therapist, but it's not that I don't feel comfortable doing so. It's just the immediate pressing like annoyances and like things I become outraged about on a daily basis feel so much more like imminent, and I need to talk about them.
Take priority, especially with COVID. I found it really helpful to have a therapist during COVID to be like, this is what I'm thinking. This is my current doomsday
right.
thoughts.
Yeah.
And she would quickly I was texting her on Talkspace, so I would get like a message from her, and she would always like talk me down immediately. Like, listen, the world feels like this. Everything is like this. It is not just you. And I'm like, oh, okay, good.
Have you found though, like,
feels so much better
with like COVID therapy though, I feel like during this time, one of the things that's super troubling to me is that my therapist does not have like the reassuring words, because everyone has no idea when and if we're ever going to get out of this. And like when I talk to her, sometimes she's just like, yeah, I also feel deeply afraid. I'm like, okay, you're supposed to be helping me not
Maybe
feel.
she just is so comfortable with you. She's just being real with you.
Well, it's true to an extent, because she and I definitely have like a client therapist relationship where she offers a lot of her own experiences, which I think is really valuable. But sometimes you just want to have like a professional person who can reassure you, and no one, like, it's not her fault. No one's capable of doing that because so much of this is like unprecedented. But it's sometimes like a couple weeks ago, she was like, hey, I didn't know if I should share this with you or not, but both of my parents got COVID this past week.
What?
And I was like, all right. So I'm here for you to reassure me that
this the start of your session?
Yeah, like that was how she opened the session. And I was like, this session, I was going to talk about how, as I do every week, how I'm scared that my like late 60s, mid to late 60s parents are going to get COVID. And she's like, my 65-year-old immunocompromised parents both contracted COVID this week. But they're fine, which is good. I mean, that was helpful. But yeah.
I feel like it's more like you guys are more comfortable, maybe a little bit more like you're on the way to being friends, even though it's a professional relationship. So maybe she's just so comfortable with you. She's like, hey, this is what's going on with my life. Maybe it would help you.
Yeah, I feel like she does a good job of picking and choosing the like personal anecdotes to tell me. Like she's not out there telling me her own deep personal problems, but sometimes she does have things that are actually helpful, and it's helpful to remember that like mental health professionals are human beings and have experienced these things. It makes it a lot less clinical for me, which I guess is kind of a personal preference. But yeah, finding out about the COVID situation though did not help that particular week.
I can imagine it spun your session into something else.
Yeah, it I then the rest of the week I worried about my therapist's parents. So not really what you want coming off of a therapy appointment.
Kind of a reversal of like what you're paying for.
Exactly.
But I feel like sometimes the reassurance and the calming words from my therapist, I would be like, oh, okay, but like, did she just pick this out of a book of quotes? Like,
right.
I don't know where she's getting this from. So it didn't always feel authentic, but it did help calm me down. So you get a little bit of each, like the realness and the comfort.
Right. Was yours like 100% text-based? Or did you...
This therapist was. On Talkspace, you can do video sessions, but I never did them with this therapist. We just texted.
Okay.
But she would like really convey herself well over
right.
messages. So I got a good sense of who she was.
I think like there's something reassuring about that too, that you can go back and look at your conversation. Whereas in like talk therapy, a lot of times you'll kind of move past something that was really helpful and forget by the end of the session. So I feel like for me, that would have been really helpful to be able to like screenshot things that my therapist said and stuff. But I've never tried the texting thing, but it sounds like it actually was decent.
It's been really good for my writer's mind to be like, let me get it out on paper and then let me get a message back and then to be able to look over it, and it never goes away. It's always there. So
that's awesome. Yeah. I know a few friends who have done it that way, and I was never sure like if it felt like real therapy, but I think it's really cool that at this point in time we have so many different options for how you can talk to someone. So
yeah, I feel like it's just, if your comfort level is there, go for the messaging, and then it's what you make of it, really, like how much you're telling them.
Right.
So I would just complain about my boyfriend and COVID, and then after like so many months, it's like, okay, I've run out of things to say about these subjects.
I know.
I'll pause it.
Yeah, I think like with my therapist, I'm just lucky to have like a really good rapport with her, because I'm sure with someone who I didn't click with as much, it would just start to be like she would be annoyed from hearing me talk about the same stresses every week, and then she would like gently imply that I need to stop coming to her or something. I don't know. But no, I haven't like I'm surprised that I haven't reached that point yet where I feel like I in the past when I have stopped therapy temporarily, it's always been like I can feel that I'm reaching for something to talk about during the session. And I think that's the indicator that like I should stop, but I haven't gotten there with her yet. So I don't know. Maybe it's just there's just an abundance of things to be deeply depressed and anxious about in 2020. So it's a good time to be a therapist, maybe.
For sure. I think I just plainly like have run out of time to do therapy. Like I just had not sleeping enough, so I like had to cut something out of my life.
So you chose the one thing that's supposed to be helping you create more balance and mental wellness. That's the thing you chose to cut out of your life.
My twisted analysis is, I have a therapy podcast and I have my Talkspace messages saved. So if need be, I could always restart my membership. But for now, I'm just going rogue.
You got to do what you got to do. You got to do it. So I support you in that choice, Michelle.
And then if I have deep depression and anxiety, I can maybe just, message your therapist.
You can always just like text me and I'll tell you what she said that week. Or sometimes, I tweet a lot about my feelings, so maybe you can just read through my Twitter feed and take something from that somehow. Mostly, probably disgust is the key emotion that people get when reading my Twitter, but
You're a toilet humorist.
You know what, Michelle? I heard a little bit of judgment in your voice there, and I would really appreciate it if you took that back, because I can hang up at any time.
It's not my go-to humor that I write about. It's your kind of humor. So
Okay.
I appreciate that you can do it so well.
The thing that's weird, though, is you will go...
No judgment.
No, you will go... I have witnessed you. You will go on stage at an open mic and talk about masturbation. I would never,
I would never.
I would never do that.
I only talk about shits in Old Navy.
That's true. I draw the line at personal pleasure. I draw the line at personal pleasure. I do not draw the line at personal excretions. That's a different thing.
I think I'm more sex positive than I am fecal
Poop
positive.
Yeah. I'm sex positive. I just like the idea of my loved ones and like the idea of my parents hearing me talk about that, which now they probably will if they listen to this podcast. But that deeply, like, I'm so uncomfortable with it. I'll talk about poop all day, but I draw the line at vibrators.
Right. Are you from a religious background? Is that why?
No, not at all. I mean, technically my family was Catholic growing up, but my hometown...
Technicality.
Yeah, I mean, like, my parents are not actively ultra-religious or anything. No, I mean, they're very progressive, liberal people, and it's just... I don't know. It's just, like, I don't want to talk... It's like my mom and I, like, have talked about sex before, but, like, it's my dad. I just don't need that to be out there.
That's how I am with my parents, too. Like, we've never talked about sex. My mom wrote me a letter as my, like, birds and bees.
Oh, God.
But, yeah, I was raised Catholic. We're very much, like, keep it inside. Don't talk about this stuff.
Keep it inside.
So, all I can do is write a masturbation joke and, hope it never makes it to Netflix.
I thought that was a very good joke. Like, it's not a joke that I would ever tell, but that's the joy of having friends who do comedy is, like, you can admire them for their bravery in ways that you would never have. So.
Yeah, in their early career when no one but their friends are listening.
And then someday
you really do whatever.
It gets dug up and you get put on blast and it ruins you. So.
Or it makes you a hero.
We'll just have to see what happens. Give it 20 years. No, I think you'll be way, way successful way before 20 years. Like, 20 years was a major overstatement, but that's the point at which people would start, like, trying to break you down and dig into your past. So I do have to go through my Twitter feed sometimes, and I'll look up, like, a keyword that could even remotely be misconstrued as, like, something offensive. Like, because I've had Twitter for 10 years. So I'll go back to, like, 2010. I guess I've had it for more than that because I had it in 2009.
You're just combing through your own Twitter feed?
Yeah, I'll look at it and I'll be like, I know this isn't like an inherently offensive thing that I said, but it could be like, I'm just thinking about the future cancellation.
Who do you think's going to cancel you?
I don't know. I know I'm not relevant. Like, I know no one is looking at it. I'm just saying.
Because the only people getting canceled are like A-grade comedians.
Okay, I know.
And like SNL cast members. Not to insult you, I'm just saying.
No,
like,
I agree with you. I just have this like deep fear. I don't know. I care a lot about people thinking that I'm a nice and good person. Like, that's like a huge thing for me. Like, people perceiving me as like an unkind or like mean person is like my number one thing that bothers me. And I know, like, in being a person who does comedic endeavors, I don't like to say comedian because I don't think I qualify as that, but like, there are definitely things that can be misconstrued as like unkind or mean or judgy, and there's like a fine line between it being very clear that I'm joking and me actually coming across as mean. So I just like don't want anyone to ever think that I'm like an actual hateful person. So I don't know. Maybe it's for myself, so I have the peace of mind that those things don't exist in the world. But thankfully, I've never posted anything racist, so that I know of.
I mean, even if you do, people make mistakes. Like, we're all learning. Our society is thankfully evolving kind of rapidly, somewhat, depending on where you're, getting your information from. But I think people are learning at a much faster rate, especially in lockdown. So even if you say something that could be construed as racist, you're like, oh, you can apologize for it. As
Right.
long as you apologize and own up to it, there's no reason to cancel someone.
Yeah, I guess there are like things probably that all of us look back at even in 2008, 2009 that we would just absolutely never say. And even watching some of my favorite TV shows from that era, like I love The Office, but there are some things on there that I watch it now and I'm like, oh my God, if that were on a show today, I would not condone it. So it's very
Office
interesting.
Could be a little sexist. I feel like I haven't watched it recently enough to know, but I did watch Always Sunny recently, and I couldn't even sit through it. I was like, this is terrible.
It's so hard with Always Sunny because like there is that self-awareness, and you like they're obviously going for like a satirical vibe, but sometimes even that is hard to watch.
Just the way like the character of Dee, the only woman on the show, I was like,
oh my God, I know.
I can't sit here and watch Dee like be a piece of human trash.
Yeah, it's tough for sure. And The Office, like it's all very subtle stuff that you kind of watch now and you're like, oh, it's just casual misogyny, like casual racism that was acceptable.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it was never acceptable, but it was deemed acceptable by, I guess, TV writers at that point in time, and it's so recent.
By the comedy world. The thing is with comedy, you're always trying to push the envelope, and you're always trying to like say these edgy things that no one else has said yet. So it's when I first started stand up and when I first like tried to write jokes in the beginning, I like would edge more racist or stereotypical or misogynist because that's what people were laughing at. And then after like the first few times I tried it, I was like, this is not my personality. This is like the room's personality that I'm assuming they want to hear. And
it's not funny. Like I just, if I am performing stand-up for an audience that would think a racist or sexist joke was funny, like I don't want to be performing for that audience anyway. So
no, like if you're trying to get cheap laughs at some generic outdoor comedy show or whatever, if you're trying to please everyone in the audience, maybe it'll work, but it's not gonna last more than a couple years because society's gonna condemn you or cancel you.
And then also you have to live with the fact that you sold out that much that you're willing, if you're a person who considers yourself like progressive in any way, that you went for the cheap laughs like that. And then, you know, that's the kind of stuff that comes back to haunt people. And I don't have a whole lot of sympathy because you can choose at any time to not be a racist, sexist, transphobic piece of trash, but we'll see.
I guess you have to speak your truth, and if you're racist and transphobic, the truth will come to light.
That's fair, yeah. I mean, at least people tell us about themselves before we have to find out, like, down the road. Just, like, tell me who you are right now. Like, okay, I know that you are those things, and I will stop following you.
So when you go through your Twitter feed, kind of, you're almost like censoring yourself. You're almost trying to find something that could be construed as negative. Do you delete stuff or do you like just beat yourself up about it?
I mean, it's rare that I like find something. First of all, this makes it sound like I spend all my days just like scrolling through my own Twitter feed. Like a couple of times I have decided to look back at old tweets and like look up certain keywords to see what I was talking about in 2011 or whatever.
We're all terrible people in high school. We're all trying to like find our identities and try to feel like we belong. It's
terrible to be a person who's been on social media since like a time in their life when they were very ignorant and like, I don't know. I hate that there is record of some of the things that I did in 2008, like publicly available to people. And so I guess when I'm looking back at that, I'm like trying to understand what it was that I thought then and how I've changed. But I just like, I don't ever want something that I posted even so long ago to come up and hurt someone currently, I guess. So I don't know. I have only done this a few times where I've really delved into my old posts, but like today I'll look at my memories on Facebook and it's like 12 years ago. I post some cryptic thing that I would totally make fun of someone for posting today. And I'm like, who is that person? Like, what?
Mm-hmm.
Why?
12 years ago. Like 12 years have gone by.
I know, but it doesn't seem that long. Like 2008? I feel like it was just 2008.
No, it wasn't. 2008, I graduated high school.
I know.
That was forever ago.
it's when you look at it in terms of like what you were doing in your developmental stages at that time, like yes, it seems like forever ago, but then thinking about years, it the year two like the number 2008 feels very recent to me. But I know
I guess.
I was a
I think
a junior in high
you're
school.
being much too critical of yourself, I would say.
Why do you
and
think I'm in therapy,
You
Michelle?
should let a little bit of it go. I mean, when you think of like the people who are getting canceled, they're mostly being canceled for being like perverts or doing terrible like sex acts like Louis C.K. in front of unwilling participants, you know, like people who kind of made other people get into really traumatic situations.
Right.
I don't think you're doing anything
I know.
being canceled.
I don't believe that I'm worthy of being canceled. First of all,
You're probably like
I'm
posting
not
an emo song lyric and you're like, I was too emo in 2008.
right. That is incredibly accurate. The worst thing to look back at is Tumblr, which was like
I never got into
oh
Tumblr,
my
but
god.
I actually have a friend who met her boyfriend on Tumblr, so I know it got personal.
It was like I don't know what it was about Tumblr, but it called me to just like write sad, horrible like sad poetry, and I'm out there at like age 19 sharing.
You wrote poetry?
Michelle, I don't want to talk about. We're not here to talk about my poetry, okay?
I wrote poetry. We won't talk about it.
Yeah, I mean,
bury that shit.
my Tumblr was like I used it basically to cope with this like horrible, very intense, drawn out breakup that I went through of like a long-term relationship. But I just overshared.
The world had to know about it.
Everyone, like my heartbreak was the worst heartbreak that had ever existed. And every like depressing thing that came across my Tumblr, like it was like a girl sitting in the rain, like crying, and then it would say, "At what age did you lose your humanity?" And I'm like, "Oh, that resonates with me. That resonates. That resonates. I'm 19. I have seen the world. I've lost my humanity because of this one breakup." So Tumblr is
I'll ask you one question about it. Did you have people in your actual social circle reading these poems?
Yes,
and reaching out
yes,
to you?
and that is what is so humiliating about it. No, they weren't reaching out. That was what was worse, is that I knew people that I knew in real life were seeing this stuff and then just like pretending they didn't see it, and then like we would interact in person and I knew full well they read my like sad poem but just like didn't say anything. I don't know. Like it'd be better if they had reached out. Because I was begging for people to reach out, basically. I wanted them to be like, "Oh, you've been so wronged. You have been so wronged."
Like begging for connection.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, to be fair, like
There's nothing wrong with that.
No, I don't think there's anything wrong with it. It's just like so cringy to look back at as like an almost 30-year-old person, and it's just. But
that's fair.
Tumblr wasn't all bad.
I have poetry on my comedy Instagram because I started it for poetry way back.
Oh my god, I saw that. I stalked that. I did.
I'm not ashamed.
It was good.
Did anything too bad.
Yeah, you just gotta check. Like I feel like mostly what I'm checking for isn't even like offensive things, but cringy things. Maybe that's a more appropriate explanation of me like looking back at my own stuff.
It is crazy when I think about like who I wrote the poems about, though. I'm like, that person had no impact on my long-term life.
I know.
Like, definitely
I know.
Short-term dating app flings or whatever, and you know, a great poem came out of it, but then it was just me being very emotional about this person who meant very little to me.
Rick from Tinder.
Yeah.
Denise from what's that one? What's that one that I met that? Oh, OkCupid. Oof. Yeah. No, I definitely have been there. Definitely there were some like subtweets and some Tumblr posts about guys that I like dated for a week, and then once again I have been wronged. Oh, I can't. It's like, so cringy.
I used to love using Twitter and Facebook to that extent as like brief one-sentence journal entries. Like, oh, here's a
someone at your door? Oh my god.
I think something fell in the sink.
Oh my god.
Those are my almonds. Those are my almonds in the pantry.
I'm sorry, your almonds came to life?
They're rattling around. Our pantry is disorganized.
Do you have rats? Be honest with me.
No, it's just it's set up like an earthquake, but no earthquake has taken place.
Well, you know, it is a couple days after Halloween. Could be a ghoul. How do we know?
Could be I'll have to check the almonds
There's
later.
always the chance of a ghoul. That's what my mom always said that growing up. Just always be on the lookout for a ghoul.
Just scaring you from the beginning.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
So I think we delved into social media a little bit. What's your what's your like go-to social media app?
It used to be Twitter, but it's definitely it's become Instagram more recently. But I was very late to the Instagram game. I was like morally opposed to Instagram in college. I just thought it was, I don't know. It didn't make sense to me. Like, okay, why would I go on this app just for photos when I could just go on Facebook and people could post their pictures on there? But I joined it like my senior year of college, and then they've added so much to it now that it is like a multimedia. There's videos, there's memes, there's everything on there. So definitely Instagram. Yeah, Instagram is like the one that I will go on, scroll through, close, and then immediately reopen, like thinking that all this new content is just going to be there. But no, it used to be Twitter. Like Twitter would be the one that I would really waste time on, but actually with the help of my therapist, I have limited my Twitter time for my own sanity. Because
I'm so proud of you, so jealous.
It's hard. It's so hard. I was talking to my brother about this, and he said the same thing. Like, I have never gone on Twitter and then felt better after closing the app. Like, at least in the last couple of years, I don't think I've ever gone on there and it's had a positive impact on me. So once I kind of made that connection, I kind of had to force myself to limit it and just like, I'll go on to post a tweet if I have an idea for a tweet, but I try not to just like mindlessly scroll as much.
That's healthy, because I think in the Trump administration, Twitter has been severely depressing. But if I can stay on it for like 10 minutes, like a very short span of time, maybe I find a link to something educational, like an article.
Yeah.
That's the perfect amount of time on Twitter, but it's really hard to cut myself off.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's like, I think with any form of social media, there is a lot of positivity, but it's just the self-control element of being like, at what point does this not make me feel good anymore? And being able to like pinpoint that and then successfully cut yourself off. I think that's what most of us struggle with, because you can find positivity on almost any of these apps, but and I'm not even like a person, I do not think that everything needs to be positive, but there's an extent to which you can expose yourself to like the reality of the world without losing your mind, and then there's a point at which you're just torturing yourself. So I've been working on trying to find that point for myself, like 3 COVID vaccine update articles a day. I get the science, I get the update.
3?
Yeah, 3. I mean, it depends on the
vaccine? Day. They're all about the vaccine?
Okay, here's the thing. I go on this subreddit. I go on this COVID subreddit, and you can filter it by good news only. And it's actually helpful because I would never do that with any other topic, but with COVID, like, I know how bad it is. I am so keenly and deeply aware of like the badness of it, but being able to filter it by anything like positive related to COVID just helps me like stay somewhat sane. But I do like to check the vaccine updates, because for me, having like that logical science-based information, even if they're telling me it's going to be months, at least I have some kind of like light at the end of the tunnel. So
now I have a visual of you going onto Reddit and being like, my 3 vaccine articles today. Like,
I've reached my limit.
Your first thing you do in the morning with your tea.
I actually do it. The problem is I do it before bed, and then I get
bed?
Yeah, it's not good. My therapist told me last week that I need to actively work on not associating my bed with anxiety, because I do, like, that's my time it's like my downtime, and that's my doom scrolling time. And I go on a doom scroll, and then I try to sleep, and I'm like, why am I having nightmares about COVID? But
yeah, and it's also a good way just to kill time. So if you're not ready to go to sleep yet, you're like, oh, let me just check social media for way too long, and then
I know it's so hard. I have tried during like the last few months to actually switch back to reading before bed, but man, it's hard. It's really hard not to go on.
So much better for you to read before bed.
Know.
It makes you tired.
I know.
You get ingrained some knowledge or some like good story in your head.
And I always feel better the next morning. Like I sleep better.
Mhm.
I feel good about like you said, expanding my brain in some sort of meaningful way. But when you have the phone right there and there's just so much happening in the world, it feels like you have to immerse yourself in that for some period of time when really that's like a self-imposed thing. So I don't know.
Like it's good to stay informed somewhat, but if you don't check the internet for a day, nothing that bad's gonna happen.
Like
If
you
it
are not
does,
going
like,
to die if you don't.
someone's gonna text you.
Right. That's what I was thinking. Somebody posted something today about like election anxiety and how tomorrow, think about like when you're about to pick up your phone and look at the polls, do you really need to do that in that moment? Trying to be mindful of it. And I thought about it for a second. I'm like, yeah, if there's any major development, someone's going to text me about it. Like I could very well not go on my phone all day tomorrow and I would still find out the information I needed about the election. But God knows I won't do that. Like I don't have that left.
We're recording this on Monday the 2nd.
Oh,
so
yeah.
The election is tomorrow.
This could be the last time that Michelle and I are ever seen alive. So
I know. Who knows what the future holds?
Who knows? I think it's like if, I don't even like to say this, but if you know who wins, we will immediately just be swept to a place where we'll be given our handmade costumes and we will be taken away on some sort of
I've
truck.
watched enough of The Handmaid's Tale to know survival skills.
That's true. Me too.
Got it in me. I'm ready for it. Bring it on.
But how many of your friends' hands are you willing to see cut off in the pursuit of justice, Michelle?
Not that many.
I can sacrifice a few, but yeah, the list of people whose hands I would sacrifice very small. So we'll see.
I know I'm not wagering any bets. I'm not looking at the polls. I thought about going on 538 today. And
don't do it. I did it earlier today, and the top article was like, "Oh, just a reminder from Nate Silver that Trump could still win." Well, I don't need that kind of negativity today. I am already like mentally preparing myself to be very depressed tomorrow. So I just why make it worse?
I recommend self-medicating the perfect amount and not watching the news at all.
Yeah.
Unless you have to. Like maybe watching the actual election as it's going down. I'll watch a little bit, but I don't want to watch the preamble. I don't want to check any polls.
Right. The thing is, like, after you've already voted, you have done everything in your power to help. If you donated, made calls, whatever. But like on the day of the election, your influence is dead, and you just have to wait. Like you've done what you can do. And
I'm just having flashbacks to 2016.
I know.
Where I was like shit faced at a bar, and like I didn't help anyone to do that. So
yeah,
this year I'm like, have a glass of wine, turn off the election if it's getting to be too much, and just limit it.
Yeah, I mean, I think for a lot of people, and my therapist we were talking about this last week. It is very much like PTSD-esque because of just how bad that night was. So it's really important, I think, to acknowledge that, like, yes, it's just politics, but it also has genuinely affected so much of our mental health. And for a lot of us, like, thinking back to that night, it's not something we've done by choice over the last 4 years, and not something that's pleasant. And it's certainly a day to take care of yourself. And like, you hear it all the time, but self-care is so important. And I think like with this election in particular,
and also staying present and realizing no matter what happens, like, you're not going to die. It's going to be fine.
Well, that's what white people can say that. But I mean, that's what kills me too, is like, I also at the same time know there are a lot of people that will not be okay if the election goes a certain way. And just the magnitude of that is very hard to process. And it's okay. Maybe by the time this episode comes out, we'll all be like feeling some sense of hope. It's possible.
But it's even like you have to take the small victories, because by voting, we're doing something. By electing people in local elections, we're doing something. So regardless of the presidential outcome, nothing is hopeless. That's what I'm trying to say.
Is it though? Is anything? Is there hope?
That.
I know. I'm trying. Yeah,
Like when Trump did get elected in 2016, I was working as a nanny, and the next day
oh
I
my
had to go
gosh.
babysit like a 1 or 2 year old, and that child knew nothing about the world or what was going on. And just watching
Right.
her walk around, I was like, okay, at least there's a child out there.
Right.
Like, she's not being affected by this.
She
You know,
doesn't
I'll put it
know
in
that she's being
perspective.
affected by it. That's what the difference was.
She won't know for many, many years.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, it's like the ultimate test in accepting that you've done what you can. So,
hmm I mean,
except for those who haven't done what they can.
I signed up to Phone Bank tomorrow. I made sure people close to me have voted. I feel like I've really done what I could.
Right.
So I don't have any regrets. I'm
You
just
don't have
hoping
to
for the
look
best.
back and be like, should I have made that one phone call? One more phone call. So, we'll see. I don't know. I'm really hoping that it would
Pull
just
through.
like I'm not under any illusion that Joe Biden being elected is going to magically fix this country, but like at least there would be some semblance of normalcy and some feeling that like an adult human being was going to soon be in charge.
It would be nice
That's
to be
all I
like,
ask.
working to fight climate change and, giving a shit about people and the country.
Yeah,
We'll see.
I don't know.
Let me ask you how do you feel about the political spin on social media, especially since like Black Lives Matter blew up
Mhm.
and everyone's been much more political in their Instagram stories or in general versus people I never knew had opinions about this, like
Yeah.
pre-COVID.
I mean, first of all, I definitely am one of those people who I feel like I've always been relatively political on social media, but yeah, definitely personally and among most people I know, it's been a huge uptick.
I feel intimidated looking at your posts.
Oh my
Like,
God, me?
I'm always like, am I doing the wrong
No.
thing by going outside?
I feel bad about because it's so hard because though like my like COVID,
You make me think about things, which is good.
that I don't want people thinking because of my posts. That's not the intent. No, I feel so bad about that sometimes because like most of my very like militant COVID posts are coming from a place of like personal fear and anxiety, and it's like the only thing I can do is to like express that somewhere. But then I know that people will look at that and feel like directly judged. But I also am a person who understands that things are not black and white, and I've had conversations with friends about this recently. Like, if my friends are meeting up in a backyard and I know that they're all being safe and I know that they're all making the choice that feels right for them, like that's their choice. And like maybe I personally wouldn't partake if I were invited, but like I don't know, I don't want people to feel like such harsh judgment from my post that they feel guilty. Like
I mean, from reading your Instagram stories, I know you're mostly going after like conservatives in Michigan.
Oh my God, yeah.
Not be taking the virus seriously.
The people, like, there's such a huge difference between having like a tiny backyard gathering with masks on and then people I see who are just hosting weddings with like 300 people, totally normal. Those are the people that like my rage is directed toward for sure. Just because it's horrible.
It's good you have that rage and I think it's good to, post some of it because I almost went to a Halloween party with Joseph because he set up the lighting for this like Burning Man theme party where he programmed a light up dragon and I wanted to go see it. And I was like, okay, that sounds cool. I like assume it's maybe 20 people, relatively outdoors. And then I get the details and it's like 50 to 70 people.
Oh,
indoors.
That's scary.
And I didn't want to bail on it or insult him. So I like thought about it and I was like, I'm talking to Sophie soon. And she would judge me if I went to this party. And I texted my friend group about it and they were like, it's probably not going to kill you, but it's not a good look. And I was like, yeah, it's not a good look.
Yeah, I mean, it probably wasn't going to kill you, but also I guess you have to think about like worst case scenario. My thing is just like I always go right to the worst case scenario. So my thought is like if somehow I give this virus to like my mom or something and something happens to her and then I'm like, where did I get it? And it was at a Halloween party. Am I going to feel like that Halloween party was worth that? But then there's also things where like I understand that people's mental health is suffering so much, like my friends who live alone and stuff. How could I ever expect them to just see no one? So it's not black and white. And
Yeah.
I
But once
do,
I learned how many people were there and it's indoors, I was like, I really don't want to do this because it's not worth going to a Halloween party to contract coronavirus or get someone else sick.
right, and it's not like it was, oh, your first chance to see your best friends or something, you know, it was people you didn't
No,
really
it would
know
have
very
been
well.
me and my boyfriend meeting up with strangers who he kind of knows. Like, it would
Yeah,
have been, I'm not going to make new connections with my mask on at a party.
right.
Probably not.
Yeah, seriously. Did they wear masks at the party at least?
I don't know. We didn't go.
You didn't see pictures or anything?
Well, I would assume they're drinking the whole time if
See,
it's a
that's the thing.
Halloween
It's like as
party.
soon as you get drunk, you're not going to social distance. So
No.
that's what troubles me, I guess. But I don't know. I think about people like one of my really good friends whose mom has been on chemo this entire time, and I don't know. I think like it depends on the people in your life that you have to think how might this action somehow affect them like that. A lot of people just seem to completely lack the ability to have empathy for people unless it's like their own mom or themselves.
Mhm.
And yeah,
Or
I,
they're, listening to Donald Trump, who's like,
yeah,
this
who's
isn't a
giving
real
them this?
virus.
Yeah, and I think for me a lot of the anger that probably comes across in some of the stuff I post about it comes from being from a very conservative town in West Michigan where it's just constant like Christian rhetoric in my face. And then when it comes to something like this, where they actually have a chance to act in a way that I think my understanding of Jesus, how I think he would act, which is to try and sacrifice for the greater good and keep people healthy, then these are the people who I'm seeing denying everything Dr. Fauci says, not wearing masks, and just like the hypocrisy of conservative Christians is where a lot of my anger comes from.
I don't
It's
understand why we
so,
have to remove science
yeah.
from the Bible. Like, why can't we just assume that Jesus would be down with science? I'm sure he was a smart guy.
Yeah, I mean, how can you ever argue that, oh, if Jesus were alive during these times, he would be out at his local bar without a mask on, trying to infect as many people as possible? Like, there's like the cognitive dissonance that I see with people from my hometown, like lights a fire inside me that probably to people who aren't from West Michigan just looks like I'm just very deeply troubled, which I am, but like it's hard to understand if you're not
No, I don't think
experiencing
that about you at all.
that. Thank you. But I don't know. But I guess
It's
like
hard. It's hard when you see people you kind of know being misinformed online and not basing any science based on this global pandemic. Where you're like, can you please just read a factual article and spread that instead of this
yeah,
rhetoric that does nothing?
and I think also the fact that my dad is a journalist makes me extra sensitive to like fact checking and just the barrage of false information that's posted. And like this year, man, it is just, it's been a
It's been a
doozy.
bad year.
But I think like to answer your original question about like people using social media for political stuff, I guess I am more troubled by people who have said absolutely nothing than people who have said maybe what's perceived as too much. And I don't think that social media should be the primary tool for like activism by any means, but also it's what we have during a time when we can't go outside. Like we can't gather, we can, but we shouldn't be gathering in the ways that we might have gathered not during a pandemic. So especially this year, like I say more power to you if you are posting about politics on social media. Like if the worst thing that happens is somebody scrolls by it and is annoyed at you or unfollows you, but best case scenario is someone actually stops and think. So I think if you're backing up your like ultra woke post with actual measurable actions, that's what's really important. And I would far prefer to see people like over posting about Black Lives Matter than pretending it's not happening and
Yeah.
staying out of politics because they somehow think that's like more respectable. I don't know. It's not a political issue. So especially with like the racial stuff that's been going on, I feel like I've learned a lot about people in my life that I didn't want to learn, I guess. And I think a lot of us have had that experience. Like seeing people share their opinions about what to me is just like a basic human rights issue is just very depressing. When those opinions are, I care more about property and keeping the peace within my own family than standing up for people's right to exist. So I don't know.
Yeah,
but
because it seems like a vast lack of empathy or understanding. But then it's also, if you're viewing people's social media posts, how much do you know about what they're really thinking or
yeah,
doing?
that's
So
the other thing
it can be
too.
vapid.
That's true. I don't think we should ever take social media as an indication of someone's, deepest
Moral ethics.
yeah, morals or ethics or whatever. But I also think if you're a person who is frequently using your social media platform to talk about other things, then then you're making the choice to not acknowledge this massively important thing on your social platform that you have. That's what confuses me. I'm like, so you're going to come on here and post about your garden every day, but then just pretend that the Black Lives Matter movement is not happening. Like, it's one thing, like Wilson doesn't go on social media at all, or at least he doesn't post. So I don't expect him to be on there sharing political content because he shares nothing. But then I know people who it's like they're on social media all day, every day, and they are posting tons of crap, but just not acknowledging this. Like I saw like a Reductress headline that was, I think it was like, woman living through greatest civil rights movement of her lifetime continues to only post photos of basil that she's growing. And I was like, yes, oh, I don't know.
I do consider myself lucky. I feel like my friends who would normally just post about the garden or whatever, some small thing that's happening, they've become more political, and I'm proud of them. And I'm glad, even if it took the current situation we're in for them to be like, let me be politically active or at least be more vocal about it. I'm glad people are taking that turn for it.
Yeah. And I think that a lot of people have historically been very cynical about like social media as a platform for activism, but I think particularly like now that we're seeing what seems to be such a huge like turnout of young voters and stuff, you can't deny that social media and like that positive peer pressure from seeing all their favorite celebrities and stuff. Yeah, you can make fun of it and make fun of people get so mad at like celebrities for daring to have political opinions, but if it does make a positive impact in this election, then I can't say anything bad about it. Like,
yeah, I never understand why people get mad. Like, oh, stick to comedy or stick to acting.
Oh yeah, you're not allowed to have an opinion because of your career choice. Like, what?
I only want to see you as an actor on a show. I don't want to know who you really are.
Yeah, no, it's true.
What it sounds like.
And then it gets depressing though, because then people that you admired, then they're vocal about something in what you perceive as a negative way, and then you have to like hate them. I don't know if to hate them, but like Kirstie Alley posted all that crazy Trump stuff this past week, and I used to love Kirstie Alley. She was in that.
I think I knew that.
I didn't know she was like a huge Trump supporter, and everybody totally has the right to express their political opinions online, but then you have to deal with the consequence of knowing your heroes and what they believe. So Kirstie Alley is not my hero, just so you know. I just liked her in that movie with what's that one? It Takes Two with Mary-Kate and Ashley.
Oh my God, that's a classic.
Yeah, and then they fling she has a food fight and she flings the butter at the guy.
Mm-hmm.
Beautiful moment.
I think my most surprising political effect in quarantine or in like the recent past, I've become much more understanding of Trump supporters, just convinced that, they're under this brainwashing type of news stream that's, if they're only watching Fox News, I can't really blame them if that's, it's what they're hearing every day.
Yeah.
And a lot of them are just misled or they're confused or they're like, I always vote Republican. So they are really people too. And I try not to.
They are?
Bash them all the time.
Yeah.
Some of them are. So maybe Kirstie Alley can make a comeback.
Maybe. Yeah, no. I agree with you. I mean, the really hard thing is that there are people who I genuinely love and who I genuinely think are good people. Mm-hmm. But then how do and they're supporting Trump and I'm just like, cognitive dissonance. Yeah, it's so hard to make that connection. And I don't know. It's very deeply troubling when you realize that like people you love can also possibly have bigoted beliefs and you can still like other parts of them, and people are multifaceted for sure.
Yeah, I think it was I don't know if it was a New Yorker cartoon or someone on who I follow on Instagram who does cartoons, but it was like a grandfather clock as a picture, and then the person was like, "Oh, this grandfather clock it works great, and just occasionally it's racist."
Yeah. Oh my gosh, but
You have to
it's just
forgive
hard
and
to accept that.
remember their people. I don't know. It is
Yeah,
hard
but
to
also like
reconcile.
a lot of them are actively trying to deny other people their basic humanity, so it's very hard for me to have sympathy for that type of Trump voter. But then, and also at the same time, like I feel how can you at this point claim that you just like didn't know any better? Like in 2016, at least I could kind of be like, maybe they really genuinely think this guy is going to do what he claims he's going to do. But how can you now vote?
The most outspoken Trump supporters are currently blocking bridges and highways. So
Yeah, it's
they
true.
know better. They're just being children about it.
Yeah, it's true. That's true. I don't know. I'm just ready for this entire election season to be over and we can move to whatever the next battle is.
Yeah,
because the
issue.
battle is certainly. I mean, the election is the beginning; it's not the end. So we'll see.
Yes, I think we'll get through it somehow. Okay, we're getting close to the end, so let's do at least one roulette wheel question.
Ooh, okay. So exciting.
I'm debuting this wheel.
Ooh, did you make that yourself?
No, I bought it off the internet, but I did write
Okay,
things on it, which
it's cute.
aren't too visible.
It reminds me of those things in like the 90s where you would put paint into it and it would spin really fast and make like splatter art. That's what it looks like.
Yeah, spin art? Was it
Yeah, that stuff
art?
was the best.
That was cool.
No, I'm
Good
scared.
90s reference.
Thank you.
All right, I'm going to give you a spin, Sophie.
I'm scared. Okay. Oh my god. Oh my god.
It landed on gratitude.
Gratitude?
What's something you're grateful for?
Oh my gosh. I am very grateful that during COVID, I've kind of had a chance to not reconnect, but kind of like reestablish certain friendships and just like take a look at what friendships I want to maintain and what friendships are worth putting my energy into. And I think we've all been forced to do that because we can't really see people as easily. But in particular, there's like a small group of my friends. One friend who I've had for a really long time who's dating a guy friend of mine, and then two of my other guy friends just in the past couple years have started dating these two wonderful women, and the four of us have just like really clicked over the past few months, and it's very rare, I think, as like an adult, especially an adult woman, to find genuine new friendships. And I think just like going through the experience of COVID together, even though it's been all through like Zoom and group chats, and just like finding kindred spirits amid this wild time. I'm really grateful for that kind of blossoming friend group, and I certainly would not have expected this to be the time when I would make new relationships, just because it's been such a solitary time otherwise. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I feel really grateful to have so many fantastic friends who I've been able to maintain friendships with despite the ridiculousness of everything working against me and working against all of us as we try to maintain our sanity. Like, despite all of these forces, I've been able to not only maintain friendships, but like build new ones. So I've been feeling grateful.
You, Wilson, and like 3 other couples, you just hang out on Zoom?
Yeah, so basically there's like me and like 4 or 5 other people I went to high school with, and it's all guys that I went to high school with. And then, so I'm the only like girl in the original high school circle that we have. But then one of them has been dating his girlfriend since early college. So she and I are like, we were the only.
I thought you were going to say early COVID.
No, God, no, like 8 years. But she and I are like we were the only like long-term women in the group for a long time. So then bringing in like
the founding members.
Yeah, no. Bringing in like 2 new really wonderful girls that we really connect with is just so refreshing. And like I love having guy friends, but also it is really nice to have that like little circle of women that I can just like complain about stuff to, and it's just been nice. Like we just played Among Us with the whole group for the first time, and it was not I was not good at it. I don't know if you can have skill in Among Us, but yeah. I think it's nice to have like
together to do something.
Yeah, I think it's nice to have like longtime friends, and I think that if your friendships can survive a pandemic, they can survive most things. So
yeah,
I guess that's gratitude,
it's
right?
It's a good time to find out what is worth keeping and strengthening, and what's
not
worth.
Yeah, you're forced to do that anyway, and there definitely have been relationships in my life, like during COVID, that have kind of taken a back seat, or I've allowed to take a back seat, and I've definitely had time to like reflect on all of that. So we can't see these people in person, so who's actually making the effort to be there virtually? Tells you a lot, I guess. So for example, you have only texted me a few times since COVID started. I'm just kidding.
We have talked a couple times, Sophie. It's been a long 8 months.
No, I feel like you and I have one of those friendships, even though we like haven't known each other. We've known each other like not even 2 years.
Not that long.
I definitely feel like we have one of those friendships where a lot of time can pass and we can just kind of jump right back into it, which is a sign of a good foundation and a solid friendship. And you're definitely one of the remnants of the CBS Page program that I'm very grateful for. So
likewise. And I feel like it's been such a shitty political time. And then sometimes I just text you like terrible things, like when RBG died.
Oh my God, you're like, how are you doing? RBG died. I haven't talked to you in a couple months.
And you're like, I'm not doing good.
Michelle!
Okay.
Yeah, I'm doing great. Everything is wonderful.
So we haven't had a lot of blossoming conversations recently, but I think we'll get back on it.
It is just so nice to have another struggling comedian friend. But honestly, like, you doing this podcast is so great, and I am very proud of you because so many people have said they're going to start a podcast, and you actually did it. So
it is
good for
fucking hard to do this thing. I mean, I understand why people don't do it.
Yeah, but you did it. I remember when you had the idea, and I was like, we'll see if she actually does it. And look at you. I'm very proud and honored that you thought I was worth.
Of course.
No, nobody's like, this is going to get the lowest listen count of any episode, because I listened to Shadia's.
If it goes into negative numbers, I'll be proud.
I listened to Shadia's and it was engaging, and I listened to part of Trevor's, also engaging.
Mm-hmm. I've had some smart, funny people on.
Yeah. So, what are you gonna do when you run out of guests? What are you gonna do?
I'll just do solo podcasts, or I'll interview people on the street, because there's plenty of people on the street in Long Beach.
There you go. Just go find some randos and ask them about their experiences in therapy.
We have a booming homeless population in Long Beach.
Hey, homeless people have probably better stories than a lot of people.
For sure. No, but I don't think I'll run out of guests living in Los Angeles. Everyone wants to talk.
That's true. That's true.
But we've come to the end. So is there anything you'd like to promote, share with the audience?
I would like to tell people to wear their masks and wash their hands and stop going to and holding weddings. And also,
get married later. Just put it
just
off.
wait. It'll be so much better when you can actually like hug people and not potentially have people die because of your love. I don't really have anything to promote other than my Twitter, which is @Sophrubo, SOPHRUBO, and my Instagram handle is the same. So if you want to follow me on there, you can do that. There's a lot of poop content.
Yeah, Sophie is a little obsessed with poop.
I'm not obsessed with poop. I just embrace it as part of life.
Poop positive.
Yeah, poop positive.
We'll link that for the listeners in the episode description. But thank you so much for taking the time to talk with me.
Yes, thank you. This was very refreshing the night before the election and temporarily took my mind off of my like deep, gnawing sense of dread. So
Yeah, I'll text you about that dread
Oh
tomorrow.
God. All right. Well, thank you. This was lovely. We'll do it again.
Yes, definitely. This has been Therapy Roulette, Consent to Vent. If you liked this episode, be sure to subscribe, leave a review if you can, and tell your friends. I'll be back with a new episode next Thursday.
Therapy Roulette, Consent to Vent, trauma disguised as comedy. Therapy Roulette, Consent to Vent. If you don't have problems, then you're probably repressing shit, and you should find a therapist.